Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot, Chief, for those kind words earlier. Remember speaking at, was it Sauder School of Business you were going to? That was just when he was a younger guy, and I was a little bit younger as well, but no, I remember you taking the business programs there, and no, I was welcomed there, and I also spoke at Simon Fraser University's their MBA programs. But I think it's important for me to go and share as much as I can. Yeah, I don't have the volume, but somebody else has it back there. There you go, look at that. You ask and you shall receive. Anyway, a few days ago I phoned my kids. Dave lives in California now, and my daughter lives in just outside of Kansas City. I said, you know, Dave, it was your birthday a couple of weeks ago. It's Jennifer's birthday tomorrow. Why don't you come to Vancouver? We'll invite a few friends and we'll have a dinner. And I didn't realize there's going to be this many people come to your birthday party. Happy birthday. Well, no, I believe that BCIT and, you know, the other technical institutes as well in Western Canada have the right way of teaching our young kids. I'm talking about NAIT in Edmonton and SAIT in Calgary. They focus on areas of, I guess, new ways of doing business. And I come from Fort McMurray, and it's the oil sands. And Fort McMurray is not a mining, well, it is a mining operation. It's a refining operation. It's a tailings operation. It was new when they first came into our region. But it was NAIT and SAIT and BCIT who trained the individuals to actually come up there and work that so that the oil sands became successful. So I totally, believe that you need to focus our young folks on what the jobs are going to be and not really focus too much on just having an education for education purposes. So I applaud, the chair and the board of governors for all the work you do in trying to find all these new possible work opportunities that are going to happen moving forward for our young people across Canada. I'd like to also thank the board of governors and all the committees you mentioned that chose me as to be one of your honorary doctorates this evening. I totally appreciate that. I'm humbled by it. Awards like this, just recognitions like this, doesn't happen by itself. There's usually a lot of people behind the scenes that support us along the way. And I have, a whole table. These are some of the people that have supported me since day one. My son, like I mentioned, he had his own challenge a few years ago, is now doing well, and there's written a book about his challenges. My daughter's here from not California, that's Dave. Jennifer's in Missouri. But my grandson's here as well, Frankie Jr. And everybody asks him, how old are you, Frankie? He says, 4.5. You gotta have that half in there because it's important when you're 4 to make sure there's an extra half in there. For me, I'm almost 60. But no, my mother is here. My mother's an entrepreneur herself, and she's the one, like they said in the video, that kept us going and drove us and kicked us in the ass when we needed a kick in the ass. She's the one that kept us going, or kept me going for sure. And my wife is here as well, and she's an entrepreneur. She owns 2 clothing stores as well. So, you can't accept these awards without having a mention those people that support you along the way, and they have. One of the other big supporters that I have in my life is Roberta Jameson, who is our CEO. I'm the chair of Inspire Foundation, and we're just trying to raise funds to get a lot of students to places like BCIT. And I've worked with BCIT early on. I funded your first Indigenous graduation here for you folks. And as mentioned back then, I said, hopefully I'll embarrass the board to actually set aside a budget to do it next year or the year after that, and they actually have committed to that. And I applaud you for that too. Thank you very much. But no, Roberta at Inspire, we funded last year $6.5 million to around 3,800 students. That's only reaching 20% of the need in our communities across this country. 20%. So we still have a long, long ways to go to ensure that we could get more young kids. And I just talked to, I think it was Joanne, about how many students that were going to BCIT. And she said there's around 1,700 Indigenous students going to BCIT. And that's a huge, huge number from our perspective. So thank you very much for that. They said I had 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then there was 5 minutes to speak. And but what's really important though for me is I remember 15, 20 years ago, I wasn't even invited to functions such as this. Now we're taking our place. We're coming back. With the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples, back a little bit. We just recognize now there was an issue with the 60 scoop where there's a lot of kids taken from our communities and just, where they were sent all over the world pretty well. We got the murdered and missing women issue that we still have to deal with. This country has to. But the more of those stories come forward, I think it gives us an opportunity to understand where it is we come from as Indigenous people. It's been a struggle for sure, and I haven't really had too many people that I could look up to ask, well, how did you do this or how did you do that? Well, hopefully the younger kids that are taking business programs today could come to me and ask me questions now that I have a little experience in that. So, if governments, I know the federal government had a federal government set-aside program a few years ago, and they said they're going to set aside 5% of their contract opportunities for Indigenous businesses. Well, that never happened. But if you could imagine if that happened, and you also add to that, the provincial government did the same thing with 5%, and the municipal governments with 5%, and all the corporations set aside 5% of their business opportunity, contract opportunities for Indigenous people, you wouldn't have to worry about social programs in our community. You wouldn't, I don't think, have to worry about social services in our community because we just want a chance, a small chance, to be able to take our place as well. So I thank you very much for this award, and thank you for the recognition, and I'd like to thank my family for coming and joining me and being a part of this night. Thank you very much.